All right, let's talk about something you probably see every single day, but never really think about. I'm talking about copper. And believe me, its history is, well, it's absolute madness. And seriously, that quote is no exaggeration. Think about it. Copper is basically the lifeblood of our modern world. It's in the wires in your walls, it's in the phone you're probably holding right now, it's in the very bones of our cities. You just can't overstate how crucial this stuff is. So that's the big question, right? How can one simple metal cause total financial meltdowns, massive fraud, and even predict the future of the entire global economy? Well, we're about to find out. We're going to dive into 4 insane true stories that show just how this humble red metal has shaped our history in some of the most dramatic ways you can possibly imagine. Okay, first up, let's jump in the time machine and head back to Sweden in the 1600s. Now, back then, Sweden was a huge deal on the world stage, but not because of its army, oh no. It was because they were sitting on a mountain of copper, and what they decided to do with all that copper was just wild. Yep, 43 pounds. You are reading that correctly. That was the weight of a single coin, one $10 piece. Can you even imagine trying to buy, I don't know, a loaf of bread with something that weighs as much as a 4-year-old kid? It's completely bonkers. So you're probably asking, why? Why would anyone do this? Well, the logic, if you can call it that, went something like this. Sweden had a ton of copper from its main mine, and they were worried the price would crash. Their big idea? Just turn it all into money. The problem is, copper just isn't worth as much as silver. So to make the coins have any real value, they had to be, well, gigantic. We're talking so big that people literally needed sleds to haul their tax payments around. Sleds! And this whole situation is a perfect, almost comical example of a classic economic idea called Gresham's Law. It's super simple. If you have 2 types of money, one good and one bad, you're always going to hold on to the good stuff and spend the bad stuff as fast as you can. So what happened? Everyone started hoarding the small, valuable silver coins and spending those ridiculous copper plates. The silver just vanished from circulation. Now, looking back, historians kinda split on this. On one hand, you have people who say, hey, this was a genius move. It was a real, tangible currency you could literally feel the weight of its value. But on the other hand, a lot of people see it as this crazy top-down policy that put a massive backbreaking burden on regular working folks. I mean, can you blame them? All right, let's leave heavy metal Sweden behind and jump forward a couple hundred years. We're in the United States. It's 1907. And this is where the story of one man, a ton of copper, and a whole lot of ambition sets off a crisis so huge it would literally reshape the entire American financial system forever. So let me introduce you to F. Augustus Heinz. He was one of the big-shot copper kings of Montana, and he got this incredibly risky idea in his head to corner the market. Basically, his plan was to secretly buy up a massive amount of stock in his own company, United Copper. The goal? To trap all the investors who were shorting it, betting the price would go down, and squeeze them for everything they had. Spoiler alert, the plan failed. And not just a little bit. It failed spectacularly. The company's stock price just tanked. And because Heinz's bank was tied up in all this, it went under too. This kicked off an absolute panic. People freaked out, thinking their money wasn't safe. They started running to the banks to pull out their savings, first in New York, and then the fear just spread like wildfire across the whole country. And boom, you've got the panic of 1907. This whole disaster is a textbook example of something called systemic risk. It's this terrifying idea that the failure of just one person, one company, can start a chain reaction that brings down the entire system. Heinz's gamble with copper proved just how fragile everything was. In fact, this crisis was so bad, it directly led to the creation of the Federal Reserve, basically a central bank meant to be a firewall to stop these kinds of panics from ever getting out of control again. Okay, now for a story that's a bit more modern, from the 1990s. This one is a tale of incredible deception, all centered on one man at a huge Japanese corporation called Sumitomo. This guy was a trader who was so powerful, so dominant in the market, that everyone just called him Mr. Copper. And this is the number that blew the whole thing wide open. $2.6 billion. That's how much in losses the chief copper trader, a guy named Yasuo Hamanaka, managed to secretly rack up and hide over 10 years. I mean, get this. For a full decade, this one guy was the undisputed king of copper. He controlled a staggering 5% of the entire world's supply. He used that power to move prices however he wanted, all while running this secret operation on the side to hide these absolutely massive losses from his own bosses. When it all finally imploded in 1996, it almost took the entire Sumitomo Corporation down with it. So how on earth did he get away with it for so long? Well, he exploited a concept that economists call asymmetric information. It's really just a fancy way of saying one person in a deal knows way, way more than the other. In this case, Hamanaka knew everything about his secret trades and his massive losses, while everyone else, even his superiors, was completely in the dark. That gave him this huge unfair advantage that he rode for 10 years. All right, our last story takes us to China, to the year 2014. And this one involves a fraud that is so simple it's almost genius. It all went down at the port of Qingdao, and it had to do with, well, piles of copper that weren't really there. Okay, so here's how the scam worked. A company would have a huge pile of copper sitting at the port. They take a banker there, say, look at all our copper, and get a massive loan using it as collateral. Simple enough. But then they take a banker from a different bank to that exact same pile of copper and get another loan, and then another one, and another one. They were using a single pile of metal to get dozens of loans, and they fooled some of the biggest, smartest banks in the world. This whole scheme is basically a super illegal and fraudulent version of a financial practice called rehypothecation. The bottom line is, the same asset, that one pile of copper, was being promised to multiple people at the same time. The physical collateral wasn't actually secured by anyone. So when the whole thing fell apart and the banks showed up to collect their copper, they found out their claims were worthless. The metal they were owed just wasn't there. So, okay, we've seen copper cause some serious chaos, right? Financial panics, massive fraud. But there's another side to the story. For decades, people on Wall Street and economists have had this nickname for it. They call it Dr. Copper. Why? Because they say this metal has a PhD in economics. And here's what they mean by that. Copper is what's known as a leading indicator. Just think about what it's used for. Everything. Construction, manufacturing, electronics, power grids, the whole shebang. So when the economy is heating up, when we're building more houses, making more cars, buying more gadgets, we need more copper. So if you see the price of copper going up, it's often a really good sign that the global economy is about to boom. And if the price starts to fall, well, that can be a warning sign that a recession is on the way. It's like it's taking the pulse of the entire global economy. And you know, beyond all the economics, copper's just iconic. I mean, look at the Statue of Liberty. She's made entirely of copper. That famous green color we all know, that's not paint. That's just what happens to copper over time as it's exposed to the air. She used to be the same color as a brand new penny. So when we put it all together, what are the big lessons from this crazy red metal? Well, the story of Sweden's giant coins teaches us that if money is just too impractical to use, people will find a way around it, no matter what the government says. The Panic of 1907 shows us how one person's terrible bet can expose so many cracks in the system that you have to invent a whole new one, like the Fed. The tale of Mr. Copper is a stark warning about how secrets and a lack of information can hollow out a company from the inside. And that scam in China? It's a powerful reminder that even today, if you can't actually touch and verify your collateral, it might as well be a ghost. And if you need one last piece of proof of how important copper really is, just think about this. During World War II, the US Mint actually stopped making pennies out of copper. They switched to steel. Why? Because every last scrap of copper was needed for the war effort, specifically for bullet casings. It's the perfect example of how, when things get really serious, the metal itself can become way more valuable than the money it's supposed to be. So that kind of leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? People say gold is for vanity, for showing off wealth. But copper is for victory. It's for building things, for winning wars, for powering progress. So the real question is, what is Dr. Copper telling us right now? What secrets are hidden in its price, just waiting to tell us what's coming next?